Good afternoon. I'm James Carter. I am currently the committeeman for Dairy Township and Dairy 15, as well as the leader for the Dauphin County Democratic Committee for the 106th Legislative District. It is good to be with you this afternoon. Now, as we went through the past election, I noticed a number of different things. One thing that struck me was the fact that when it came time to talk to various groups, be it the African American, be it the women or whatever it may have been, the big question came up as to what can we do to get these people out to the poll. No matter which radio station or which TV station I listened to, I heard that major complaint. And I sat back to myself and I said, anytime anyone can do anything for you, you end up owing them. And I feel ever since I was 9 years old, when my mother ran for school board, and I was involved in that election, and I was involved with the first class citizens of Aliquippa, Pennsylvania, I've always felt that it was a right and a responsibility. Now, James Brown had a song out that basically stated, I don't want nobody giving me nothing, open the door, I get it myself. I take it a step further. I said, I don't want nobody giving me nothing. Get out of my way and I'll get it myself. Okay. And as I thought about that, several years ago, I put together what is called the Family Political Empowerment Plan. And the reason why I went to family was because I went back to my days when I was growing up. And when you look at the family, that's where your foundation is started. It's established with the family. Then there are certain criteria for the organization of your family unit. You may remember, if you are a baby boomer or a little bit younger than that, you may remember that when you talk to your parents about what someone was doing in the neighbor's home and why can't we do that, the question was, where do you live? Okay, and you live here. And this is what we do. Now you got an option. You could go stay with them or you could stay here. Now, naturally, you didn't want to go stay there because of the fact that while that particular criteria was good for you, there were other criteria that was not. So you tried to make your way through the situation. Now, basically, what we have is two criteria: cultural and social competencies. And when we study cultural and social competencies, we're talking about a range of cognitive, affective, and behavioral skills that lead to effective and appropriate communication with others. You learn this in your home, okay? And it is there that you create a sense of acceptable norms. It's the baseline that's established for the family unit, okay? Now, everyone is different, but there are sets of norms that you have there. When I was growing up in the Carter household, it was when you walk into a room, it is your responsibility to suck the air out of the room. It didn't mean the fact that you went in there and you say, I'm bad and this is what I'm going to do. My parents told me your back is straight, your head is high, and your face is no nonsense. You're not Stephen Fletcher. You don't have to go in there smiling. You walk in there meaning business. I'm currently 71 years old, and that's still my mantra when I walk into a room. I walk into it knowing what I want to say, realizing what I have to do, and we take it from that point. Now, when we talk about the social and cultural competencies, the fact still remains that if you do not create those competencies, someone or something will do it for you. And that's how they come out with their idea about what we can and what we will not do. Now, I have another philosophy in the fact that if you're not at the table of decision making, you are the subject that's being discussed and the meal that's being planned. We have to put ourselves in a position of being at the table of decision making. That's when we come into the elements of the family political empowerment plan. Just like your family sets you up to be out in the community and to establish yourself in the community, I feel that it is up to the family for you to develop your political empowerment, because then you know what you need and you figure out a way how to get it. Now, when you start talking about political empowerment, permanent political change is directly related to our empowerment. If we don't feel we have any, we're not going to be a part of the change. If you're not part of the change, you're part of the discussion at that table, and they're thinking about how to chew you up. Okay, so that's the first thing. Then it says, most people align political empowerment with wealth. I take it a step further because I've seen a number of people in poverty rise to political position. And in that, we're talking about the importance of intellectual wealth of the family in the process. Now, it is from that point that I want to take you into the family political empowerment plan. Now, you have to remember the plan in itself is a 5-step plan. It's a 5-step plan. I believe in keeping things very simple. When I coach basketball, I teach people how to dribble with the cup, 5 fingers out on top of the ball, dribbling down. When I grew up, you couldn't go to side to side. You couldn't do the Euro step, or you couldn't do anything of that nature. You had to have total control of the ball. So with the 5 steps, we're talking about you as a family deciding what's good for you politically and how you're going to go about doing it. Step number 1, voter registration. Okay, ask yourself this one major question. Is every eligible member of your family registered to vote? To me, their party doesn't matter. That's their choice based on their belief factors or what they see coming down the line. When I taught high school, every senior had to register to vote. And it was the same principle. You register the party that you feel most comfortable with. And not only that, once they voted, I would tell them, you know, the next test you're going to get an A if you bring, at the time they had stubs, and they brought the stubs back, Mr. Carter, I voted. Okay. The next test for most people on their first voting is the final. So it didn't take long for them to figure that out. But they registered to vote. Okay, so voter registration is a starting point for the family political empowerment plan. Step number 2, information gathering. As a family unit, you need to sit down and talk about information sources and resources. Now, if I was sitting down with you developing a plan, the first thing I would tell you was, I want the members of your family to be split in 2. And one would look up cultural competencies, the meaning of it, and start to talk about the cultural competencies that your family has developed. The second group would look at social competencies and how they're established in your community, in your city, in your state, okay, in your region, in your country. Because remember what I told you before. If you're not at the table establishing in these competencies, someone is establishing them for you. That's like my dad used to always tell us. He said, people will talk to you about common sense. But when people talk to you about common sense, you ask them this one question. Common to who? Okay? Because where I come from, your element of commonality is not so. I once had a professor at Edinburgh that was giving me a difficult time. And I told him, I said, sir, you can't judge me. And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, the thing is, I'm bicultural. You're not. And he said, what do you mean? I mean, he was arrogant about it. And I told him, I said, my parents, my family, my community taught me all about me and who I was and how I am to present myself to be accepted. I said, every bit of education I had all the way up to this institution has been teaching me what you wanted me to know about, what you wanted me to be. And you're trying to assimilate me into that role. And I'm telling you, not so. I've been taught to think. I've been taught to manipulate the system or not be manipulated. Okay. The gentleman came back the next day and told me, Mr. Carter, when he said that, I already knew he got the point. He said, you're right. I told him, I said, no apology needed. Okay. Just understand the fact that I am not permitted in my cultural competence to allow you or anyone else to tell me who I am. And I will not do it. So the reason why I say on information gathering to do those two steps is so that the family will understand your cultural and your social competencies. Okay. The third, then you will look at each candidate, each issue on the referendums that are coming up, especially in this upcoming election. There are at least 4 referendums that's going to be on there in regard to Senate Bill 106. You're going to have your local governmental elections, your school board, your county elections, and judges on the state level. It's going to be a lot. So you have a lot of information together. The third piece is one that families have gotten away from. And the third piece is that of communication. Once informed, what level of communication does your family engaged? Sit down and talk with each other. The information that you picked up on the candidates, on the referendums, anything that's involved politically in your area, you sit down and discuss it. I even go as far as say, if you have junior high school students, they all know how to use the computer. You give them an assignment, because that way, at least they will start to get into the flow of the matter. And by the time they get to be 18, it will be important. Okay. But if you look up the information on 106, the one thing they want to do is make the age 21. And they want to have permanent ID. Okay. So when you start looking at the different elements that's there, then you know what's important and you know what you want to fight for. And just like the young ladies came out in this past election and voted on the basis of the abortion issue, you can vote to empower yourself, to protect yourself at this upcoming election. So family communication, talking, what does each candidate give to your family unit to meet your family unit's needs? That's empowering, because you're going to make the decision as to who you're going to vote for or not going to vote for. You're going to make the decisions as to if you're going to vote yes or no on the referendums and the judges. The fourth piece is that of voting. In the state of Pennsylvania, we basically have 2 tenets for voting. One, mail in. 2 is that of voting at the poll. You choose, but you choose as a family unit how you're going to do it. The first year I did this plan in my precinct, I saw families in droves coming to the polls as a family unit, standing out there to vote. Okay, now the whole idea is to make voting a part of who you are. Voting is part of what you do. No one should be in a position to tell you that you should vote. The only thing they can tell you is what they're going to do for you and your family if you choose to vote for them. Back in the day, in the 70s, we used to call them nickel dime bottle of wine politicians. Okay, we call them nickel and dime bottle of wine politicians because the Sunday before the election, they went to as many churches as they could. And they put money into the offering plate and people told you how good they were. We call them bottle of wine politicians because after they left the church, they went to the bar and they bought people drinks for votes. And I could never understand how people would give up such a precious right that people die for you to have, for you to vote. So now we're talking about the fact that you can't give me anything but the respect that I'm due, and you're to govern to protect my interests. That's what you tell them. And you tell them that as a family unit. So go vote as a unit. And then go out to dinner, go out to lunch. Enjoy yourself. Communicate as a family unit. Now, if you can see, this whole thing is about building family. Now, the 5th is probably the most important part when we start talking about continued participation. Do you know your committeeman for your particular precinct? If not, the question is, why not? The next step is to get to know them. And if you do not have a committee person, because many precincts do not have committee people, then you go to your party and you let them know that you want to be appointed to be a committee person for that particular precinct. Because see, this is where you start to get to the point where you're at the table. Because as a committee person, you're part of the governing body for your party. You vote on different issues. You get to know the different politicians. You get to know them personally and face to face to the point that you can talk to them. And you let them know what you need. Okay. And if necessary, you become their worst nightmare, especially if they know that you can mobilize that community. No. And in the past election, I looked at the voting for the precincts in Dauphin County. And overall, some precincts did well. But for there to be any precinct that have 19% of the people voting, 21%, 29%, 35%, to that committee person, that should be unacceptable. Right now, I have the largest precinct in Derry Township. It's the 5th largest in the county. My goal was 75% turnout. When I looked at the numbers, it was at 71.9. I got upset because I know that we went to every door. Okay. I know we went to every independent door. And only 58% of the independents showed up. And in the precinct all told, it was about 67% of the eligible voters voting. Now that's telling me one thing, that some families are taking this seriously, especially when you start to look at some other precincts where only 19% of the eligible voters voted. The question is, how are we going to intellectually and keep ourselves in the program? How are we going to keep that vote moving so that we can be heard, so that we will not have people walking around saying, my vote does not count, so that we can stand up and say, yes, we put them into office. I had people walk up to me and said, well, James, we need Stacey Abrams here in Pennsylvania to help us out. And so I said, no, we don't. I said, I love Stacey Abrams. She's doing a masterful job in Georgia. I say, but you have to remember there's 5 other agencies in Georgia that's pushing the people out to vote. My question to you is, why can't you take that position here in the state of Pennsylvania, in your precinct, in your area, in your community, in your town? Why can't you take that position? We will walk with you, we will talk with you to get that done. I just say, give me a call. And the political empowerment plan, I'm going to leave a copy here. If you write me at my email address, which is James, James, the numeral 2, Carter @hotmail.com. Now, don't hate on me because I still have a Hotmail account. Don't hate on me. I have a Gmail account too, but I usually use a Hotmail account because it's aligned with my, with my computer. But again, that's James, the numeral 2, Carter, CARTER @hotmail.com. And I will send, just state the fact that you heard me on the show, or if you listen in at some other time to the presentation on YouTube, just let me know that you heard and you would like a copy of the plan. And I will send that to you. Okay? But the whole idea is the fact that we have to increase our intellectual wealth. We cannot allow ourselves, our families, to be marginalized. We have to step up to the table. We have to be a part of the decision-making, because keep this one thing in mind. If you're not part of the discussion at the table, you're the meal that's being planned. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate this opportunity. And maybe, one day we can come in and do a call-in show so that people can actually discuss what they need and what they want out of their government and their representatives. Thank you very much.